Avengers Endgame. Nigga, we made it. Avengers Endgame is finally here. The blockbuster of the year, or at least like one of the big blockbusters. There actually are a few blockbusters this year that could be worthy of being called blockbuster of the year. But for right now, I feel like it's safe to say this is the blockbuster of the year. This is the one you've been waiting for. This is the one I've been waiting for. This is the one everybody has been waiting for since Thanos snapped his fingers last year and wiped out half of the living universe. So in case you did not know, Avengers Endgame is the sequel. It is the follow-up to Avengers Infinity War. It also kinda sorta marks the end of an era for Marvel. It's been 11 years of seeing these characters, and this movie directly deals with and ties up the events of Infinity War, where, like I said, Thanos, the big purple dick, decided to snap his fingers and wipe out half of living humanity. In this movie, you see the Avengers trying to pick up the pieces. They're trying to find a way to bring the people back. They're trying to find a way to get back at Thanos, and there's a plan that's formulated, and then the Avengers are down. They have to pick themselves up, and I really don't want to tell you much more than that. I want you to go into this movie as blind as possible, because people on the internet are assholes, and people have been leaking shit, and people have been trying to spoil shit for this movie. I hate spoilers. You guys know how much I hate spoilers. I'm not going to spoil any of that shit for you, so that's really all I want to say. Thanos wiped out half the universe. Avengers have to find a way to stop him or to reverse what happened. And that is the movie. Say that the anticipation level for this movie is high would be like the understatement of the entire century. You could argue that every single movie, every single character beat, every single sequel, every single spinoff, every single whatever in Marvel has been leading to this moment. More importantly, you want to see how they do it. You want to see how they get back at Thanos. You want to see the Avengers get back on their feet. I love the way that this movie started. I love the entire first act of this movie, because the first act of this movie directly deals with the ramifications and the consequences of what Thanos did. In a lot of ways, compared to Infinity War, Endgame feels a little bit more personal, a little bit more small scale, a little bit more intimate with these characters. You get a lot of really intimate and personal character moments with these heroes that you have followed and loved for all of these years. You get a lot of that in the first half of this movie. I thought it was really refreshing. The tone to start the movie was very somber, it was very reflective, it was very, oh shit, we failed. We didn't get it done, and now we have to live with what happened. It was awesome. I thought it was amazing that they decided to take that approach, because in a lot of ways, it allows you to really get down in the dirt with these characters, to feel their failure, and to get you rooting for them again so that you can try to push them towards the finish line. Like all of them, all of the surviving members of the Avengers, all the ones who didn't get snapped away, they have to walk around and hold that L, and it is heartbreaking to watch, and I love the fact that the Russos decided to make this movie that type of movie. I will say that the Russos have, generally speaking, done a very good job at making the visual effects in their movies pop, with a lot of vibrancy, a lot of color, a lot of interesting ways that they are able to blend gritty realism with their camera work, as well as like the big, huge CGI action sequences. Comparatively speaking, I guess I would say that Infinity War is actually the better shot between the two movies, but it doesn't mean that they're slacking in the visual effects department. So I want to give credit to the Russos for their direction visually in this movie. Got to give praise to the performances. All of the actors, every single one of them, bring their A game. If I had to single out 3 performances, I would actually say 2 of them make sense. I mean, because it's Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. When is he ever not a great Iron Man? Captain America actually gets quite a bit more to do in this movie, not only from an action standpoint, but also from a character standpoint compared to Infinity War. I never thought I would say this in a review, but I'm actually going to single out Black Widow. Black Widow in this movie, oh my god, she surprised me with the emotional range that she had to show. I'm gonna say something that is gonna sound like a negative. A lot of people hear this phrase in a movie or in a movie review or whatever, and they're just kind of like, fuck that phrase, I don't like it. It means the movie's bad. And I'm not using it in a bad way here. I will say that this movie is a fan service wet dream. This movie has the best and biggest fan service of any Marvel movie that has ever come out, and no, that is not a bad thing. First of all, we're fans. Why wouldn't we want to be serviced? You're a fan who has been following Marvel from the beginning, rooting for these actors, rooting for these characters, invested in the stories, invested in the universe that they have built, then yes, you want to be serviced, and this movie definitely shells out for you. There are a lot of crowd-pleasing moments, there are a lot of great scenes, great callbacks, great references. Scenes in this movie are built to evoke an emotional response in you. And yes, it's fan service, and yes, it's kind of deceitful. But who gives a shit? That's the way the movie's designed, and that's what they're trying to do, and that's what we deserve. Action sequences in this movie. I mean, good God, good Lord. Woo! The action sequences in this movie, specifically in the third act of this movie, are God tier. Like, there's almost no way I can actually describe it. Of course, no spoilers, but just holy holy shit. Just holy shit. The action in this movie, the action in the third act, your mind is going to be blown. Your jaw is going to be on the floor. I'm just preparing you for that now. Off the top of my head, I will say that this movie is like top 2 or 3 all-time best third acts that I've ever seen of any comic book movie ever made. And I don't care, you can go all the way back to the 1970s, you can go all the way back to any other comic book company. DC, you can go to Marvel, you can go to Fox Marvel, you can go to Dark Horse, you can go to whatever comic book property you want to go to, and the third act in this movie is top 2 or 3. Like, top 2 or 3, it has to be. Much as it feels like a swan song to the old MCU, it also feels like a celebration of everything that the MCU has been so far. And I feel like, as a fan, you're going to enjoy that. Oh, there's plenty of parts in this movie that make me go, goddamn, what a movie. There's also plenty of parts that make me go, goddamn, I didn't like that. Every single movie ever made has flaws. Endgame is no exception. In fact, there are some flaws that actually start to mess with my head as far as what I want to rate this movie. There is a nitpick I do want to point out at the very beginning. It has to do with the pacing of the film. Because of the way this film is structured, because of the story and the way they decide to take it in certain directions, some of the pacing is going to feel a little bit off in this movie. There's going to be some slow parts, a little bit of a slow burn, particularly maybe in the first and second act. I would say that this is a nitpick because I personally never really feel bored, and I feel like most fans aren't going to feel bored, but there are going to be some people that are going to be like, holy shit, nothing is happening. And that's okay. I feel like it's the way the movie was designed. It was supposed to feel that way, but you might have a problem with it. I didn't have much of a problem with it. What I did have a problem with in the movie was the way that the movie sometimes circumvented and changed the rules that it was establishing within its own story. I can't spoil exactly what I'm talking about, but there are certain elements of its story, its storytelling, that just didn't work for me. There are some people that are going to fixate on some of the holes in this movie, specifically in some of its storytelling, and the way that the movie doesn't honor the rules that it itself tried to flesh out. Some things that don't add up or don't make sense, that weren't properly explained. Some people might feel confused at different parts of this movie. Even if you feel like there are some things you can stitch together on your own and you can figure it out on your own, that's great. But it still doesn't change the fact that the movie itself doesn't really follow its own rules sometimes. And my biggest problem outside of that are certain character decisions that the Russos make, like certain characters, the way they decide to handle them in the story, the direction that they tried to take some of them. Nope. I'm not down with it. I'm not on board with it. I can't spoil it. I can't spoil which characters. I can't spoil in what way they didn't service this story. No, so some of it I was not on board with, and I do have bigger issues with how certain characters were portrayed. Beyond all that, Avengers Endgame is a kick-ass movie, a very exciting movie with some of the best moments in comic book movie history. Marvel fans are going to love it. I even loved it, although I don't know how much I loved it, which is why for the first time in history on this channel, I am not going to give a rating. That's right, no rating. You're not going to get one because I don't feel like it's fair to the movie, and it's not fair to me myself because I'm still conflicted about certain things that I saw in this movie. I need to see it again because I'm going to see the movie again, I'm going to process it some more, and then I'm going to do a spoiler video next week, and I'll reveal my rating in that. I am in fact recommending that you see this movie, that it is a dope-ass movie, that it was really, really good. Some things inside of me that are still fighting over this, so I can't in good conscience give you a rating right now. Like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace!